Let's start with the first level. Imagine a young man with neither money nor a noble lineage to his name. This is a Velite, a light infantryman of the early Republic. In the legion's hierarchy, they occupied the lowest rung. Their main task wasn't to hold the line, but to pepper the enemy with javelins before the main clash. A Velite's equipment was as budget-friendly and light as it gets. Instead of heavy helmets, they often wore wolf skins over leather caps. This helped centurions identify their skirmishers in the heat of battle. A Velite carried several short javelins, or hastae, specifically veruta. These were designed with soft metal tips so they would bend upon hitting a shield, making them impossible to hurl back. Their only protection was a small round shield called a parma. Velites were mobile, daring, and often the most desperate, as they had to prove themselves to rise through the ranks. Once their ammunition was spent, they retreated behind the heavy infantry. Their service was dangerous and rarely rewarded with glory. Yet it was their opening volley that signaled the start of every great Roman victory. Once the dust from the Velites settled, the men who forged the Republic's glory stepped forth. Level 2 consists of the Hastati, young men in their prime, capable of enduring grueling hand-to-hand combat. They carried heavy gear, the famous large scutum shield, and a bronze breastplate. Behind them were the Principes, more experienced warriors with better means and high-quality chainmail. The maniple system allowed these two lines to swap places in the middle of a battle. If the Hastati grew weary, they would tactically withdraw, leaving the enemy to suddenly face fresh, more seasoned Principes. Their primary weapon was the gladius, a short sword perfectly designed for stabbing in tight formations. They also introduced the pilum, a heavy throwing spear. A single well-placed pilum could disable an enemy shield, leaving them defenseless. Montefortino-style helmets protected their heads while keeping their faces clear for better visibility. These warriors weren't professionals in the modern sense, they were citizen soldiers. After the war, they returned to their plows and farms, if they survived. It was this civilian army that crushed Hannibal and conquered Greece, but over time, Rome needed something more permanent and efficient. Level 3 is the iconic cinematic image we all know. Following the Marian reforms, the legion became a professional force, and the legionaries became Marius's mules. Soldiers no longer had to buy their own gear, it was provided by the state. Chainmail gave way to the legendary Lorica segmentata, plate armor that offered incredible protection against slashing blows while remaining flexible.
An Imperial legionary was an elite athlete, marching 30 kilometers a day in full kit. His pack included not just armor, but entrenching tools, food supplies, and stakes for the camp. The testudo, tortoise formation, allowed the legion to advance under a hail of arrows almost unscathed. This was the gold standard of ancient infantry, capable of shattering any phalanx or barbarian horde. A legionary served for 20 to 25 years, hoping for a land grant and a decent pension at the end. He was not just a warrior, but a builder, an engineer, and an administrator of conquered lands. Without these men, Rome's borders would never have stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia. But even in this perfect structure, some stood head and shoulders above the rest. Level 4 belongs to the men who literally held the empire together. The centurion is a symbol of experience and absolute authority. To become a centurion, you didn't just have to survive, you had to display exceptional courage and leadership. They were easily recognized by the transverse crest on their helmets, ensuring soldiers could spot their leader in the thick of the fray. In his right hand, a centurion always carried a vine staff, the vetus, a symbol of his rank and disciplinary power. They were the vital link between the aristocratic generals and the rank-and-file soldiers. A first-rank centurion, the primus pilus, commanded such respect that even generals sought his counsel. Unlike common legionaries, centurions often made the army their lifelong career. Their armor was adorned with awards, phalarii, medals that jingled with every step. They were the first over the walls during a siege and the last to retreat. The mortality rate among centurions was staggering because they always led from the front. However, there existed another caste whose influence reached far beyond the battlefield. We have reached level 5, the elite of the elite, the emperor's personal bodyguard. The Praetorians didn't live in tents on the frontier. They resided in luxurious barracks in the heart of Rome. Their pay was several times higher than that of a regular legionary, and their term of service was shorter. Their equipment was intentionally opulent, featuring Attic-style ceremonial helmets and embossed shields. But their true power lay not in their blades, but in their political leverage. The Praetorians were the only armed force permitted within the sacred boundaries of the city of Rome. This made them kingmakers. They could protect an emperor or assassinate him at will. History is full of instances where the guard literally auctioned off the throne to the highest bidder. In combat, they were magnificent, recruited from the very best veterans of the legions, but their loyalty often depended on the size of the ruler's purse. The Praetorians represent the moment the great military machine began to consume itself from within. They embodied power, luxury, and the eventual arrogance of the empire's sunset. And that's all for today. In this video, we've broken down the key components of the Roman army. Hit the like button if you want a part 2, and see you next time.